Oh man, today, internet, I just was not feeling up to it. I really just didn't want to do it. I was having that sensation of just knowing I needed to study, and I just wasn't up to it. That feeling of just not wanting to do it and everything, and then, sitting here and staring at questions like this, and, watching the Cat Academy videos about, shifting absolute value graphs, and then watching Salmon like drone through it, taking forever, but it took a while until this shifting absolute value stuff, graphs started to click into place, and it took me a minute. So, it took a second, for me to understand that if you want to add absolute, like if you add within the absolute value pair, like n x equals plus, no, within the absolute value brackets x plus n, if n is defined as an integer, and that's how you move to the left. And if you want to move to the right on the graph, you do at within an absolute value pair x minus n. So it's basically the inverse. It's the opposite direction. If you're on a graph, it's defined by like this would be a graph, and you want to move. If I want to move to the left, I'm gonna have to add to move to the left within an absolute value pair. And if I want to move to the right, I'm gonna have to subtract, even though that is counter intuitive and everything, and that it works the exact inverse and everything. But eventually, it clicked into place, and I was able to get mastery over this particular subject and get 4 out of 4. See that I the first attempt that I made was actually a 1 out of 4, but I didn't take a screenshot of that. I just went straight to the next attempt, and then as it started to click into place after I made all those mistakes about how to figure it out, eventually I did figure it out, and now I'm able to submit as is, and I just went up a level on Khan Academy, advanced to level 4 and everything, and so my skill in algebra is, and this is the TX, uh, you know, good morning, Texas is all I can say. Ohio, Texas, as in Ohio gozaimasu, and everything, as in, yeah, anyways. So here we go. So I'm going back to Cat Academy, to look up the particular course that I'm taking, and, see all, and everything, and I'm 5% through, and basically this is the Texas Algebra 2 aligned with Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills (TX). This algebra course 2 course strengthens understanding of functions, equations, inequality, and data models. Students will explore key concepts such as polynomial operations, exponential and logarithmic functions, rational expressions, and systems of equations, all through real-world application and interactive practice. With engaging lessons, instructional videos, and step-by-step problems, this course helps support deep mathematical reasoning and prepares students for future success. Let's get started. Although I probably maybe should have started in with college algebra. The thing is that as far as my mastery of this and everything, and how I've been through this and everything, I've literally like I've. Oh, wow. Yeah, no, wrong click. But anyways, I've been through, a good portion of it so far, and it's pretty great, that I've gotten this far. But yeah, I've gotten the Unit 1. I haven't completely mastered, I guess, every aspect of it with Unit 1, but I got pretty close. I maybe should go back and do that. But, yeah, I've managed to get through this, and through a significant chunk of it and everything, and it's pretty great that what's going on. And I've got 5%, but I didn't want to show up today. I just didn't. But yesterday, all I did was watch one of the first video in the series about shifting graphs. Today I was sitting there, and in that state of just not wanting to bother and everything, and to do the studying. But anyways, I powered through it, and I hope to build that muscle that just says, do it anyways, because that's been the real struggle when it comes to learning, is having those days where you need to do it and just, nah, I don't want to do it, wah, wah. And then trying to find a way to will yourself into it. But today what worked was just sitting there and remembering, hey, remember what you want to do this for. You want to make repair videos, you want to fix broken electronics and get set up a tripod and record yourself fixing that stuff, and working the soldering iron and doing this stuff on video, and you're gonna need a little bit of practice doing it first. But once you master that, I just went into the lab at Portland Community College. Now, I know, especially because this is a YouTube video and everything, that if I want to learn soldering and everything, that YouTube is a phenomenal resource for learning that sort of thing, and also just the prospect of being able to collaborate with the World Wide Web about finding solutions to particular problems, that I have with soldering and everything, and to consult with experts, across the world is absolutely, a factor, and everything, and makes it a phenomenal resource to learn those skills. It's just, I want another expert in the room with me as I'm learning, and I'm going down the learning path, and everything, to help, guide me and prevent mistakes, because this is one of those things where it can be sort of expensive if you mess up. Now, mind you, that when it comes to doing this sort of soldering and modification on technology, there are very few mistakes that a solderer tech can make that can't be fixed. So, especially if you know what you're doing. But here I am, wanting to gain the skills to also recover from my own mistakes and everything, and to get this taken care of and everything. But yeah, so, a good evening, everyone. I realize I ramble a bit and everything, but I just wanted to say, it's been a good day for me, or good evening for me and everything, to get through that, lack of desire to study and everything. And that's just my minor update for the day. I got through my reps today.